reached 2009, women were not only struggling for equal treatment in sports, but they were also struggling just being accepted into any college or university. In many institutions, they would discriminate against women applicants through unlawful practices within their admission offices like sex-based quotas. So women were not able to be full-time students, so they were typically part-time students, but there were many rules and regulations on part-time studies which greatly impacted women. Institutions would heavily discourage part-time study for students by charging them higher tuition or requiring a minimum fee per semester. In 1977, there was a prediction that financial aid directors would grant greater dollar amount to male applicants rather than female applicants. But this prediction was not upheld. The recent trend of Title IX regulation began to affect the way financial aid directors awarded financial assistance. Title IX regulations began to make financial aid directors more aware of sex discrimination issues. Okay. So as time passed, Title IX for women began to improve, but it soon came to light that women students were not the only students in need of this protection. There was a substantial amount of growth of Title IX complaints filed with the OCR against nonprofit colleges and universities in the year 2000. The filings flew through the roof after 2009, and they reached an all-time high record in 2014. The complaints citing sexual harassment nearly equaled academic and athletic filings for the first time. Title IX offers a process where any educational institution can inform the OCR that they want to claim a religious exemption. In 2014, Biola University filed for this exemption and they received it in 2016. Biola University is a private Christian institution, therefore it was not very hard for them to receive this exemption. Biola's religious beliefs did not fit in well with gender expression or gender identity, which caused conflict under the Title IX requirements and the institution's religious beliefs. The institution has a sexuality and relationship policy, which states that students cannot and will not engage in same-sex behaviors. If so, these students will receive counseling from student development, or this type of homosexual behavior will be addressed in a disciplinary process. So also around this time, there were some things going on for transgender students. The protection that was happening for transgender students being able to use the restroom which corresponds with their gender identity was also taken away from them. The Department of Education even announced that the OCR would no longer be taking complaints about the situation that was going on for these students. So now we're going to move into the next section of my study, which is about LGBTQ students. Research shows that LGBTQ individuals are of greater risk of mental health related problems. This increase in difficulties comes from negative thinking, interpersonal relationships, and emotional management. There are also additional mental health struggles for LGBTQ individuals, like an increased risk of drug and alcohol dependency or low self-esteem. The CDC conducted a national survey and found that LGBTQ individuals are of greater risk for sexual harassment or assault by an intimate partner as compared to heterosexual people. 44% of lesbians and 61% of bisexual women experience rape, physical violence, and stalking by an intimate partner as compared to the 35% of heterosexual women. 26% of gay men and 37% of bisexual men experience this situation as compared to the 29% of heterosexual men. Bullying and harassment limits LGBTQ students from developing relationships with their peers and others. This also limits them from taking advantage of their school resources, which may help them succeed academically. Students who are bullied and harassed also lack attachment from any school-related personnel like teachers or counselors. So Julius Mills from the Chronicle of Higher Education interviewed more than a dozen of LGBTQ students to gain insight about the issues and problems they encounter on college campuses. So now we're just going to take a look into a quick clip of the video that I think is important for you all to see.
There are instances where I feel unsafe, mostly because they're unmonitored or it's just not very populated, and I feel that there is an easy chance for me to be targeted as a trans person.
If it's just a simple thing about using the women's bathroom.
One of our students is a trans female, and she actually was escorted out of one of our bathrooms by a security guard.
As soon as I walk in there, I get stares, and it's hard for me to stare off those stares and, counteract anything that they say or that they do.
So constantly at school, I am forced to think about the necessities of my own well-being versus thinking about my classroom and what I should be studying.
Anybody on the scale of fluidity with their gender, they need to be able to go into the bathroom that they're most comfortable with, and no one should be able to be harassed or removed by security.
I've lived in all women's dorms, and being the only guy in a women's dorm is kind of awkward.
I'm fortunate enough to be able to switch it on and off in a way that I can dress the way I want in safe places, and then dress how I need to when I can.
So as you guys can see from this video, that these issues heavily affect these students in a lot of ways. So now we're just gonna move into the last section of my research, which is discrimination. Bullying and harassment are all forms of discrimination, whether they are on racial, religion, age, disability, sexual, or sexual orientation grounds. Since 2004, it has been unlawful to discriminate against someone because of their sexual orientation. Also in 1999, sex discrimination, gender reassignment regulations have disallowed discriminating against someone who changed their gender. So my question for all of you is, how are all these rules and regulations for discrimination have been taking place, but this is constantly happening and the law is constantly being broken for LGBTQ students? Transgender students are currently at political forefront for discrimination. There's an Indiana House bill that addresses biological sex identity. If any institution has any athletic program for male or female students, a student must participate in only the athletic program which corresponds with their biological sex. So if you are a student who is LGBTQ and Black, according to higher educators, you are doomed for failure in higher education. Transgender people or students were and still are not the only people of the LGBTQ community who are of a double minority. The intersectionalities regarding sexual orientation and gender identification include the following: race, religion, sex, age, and disability. So I just want to touch on why this study matters to me and why I feel like it should matter to other people. So if you read my paper, if you didn't, I am an LGBTQ student. And so I am also Black and I am also Mexican. So I understand being a triple or double minority. And I understand where these students are coming from. It sucks when you're in class and you want to say something about something else, or you're afraid that your peers or your professors or anyone in the university is going to judge you. And it really sucks. And I feel like it's important for everyone to know that Title IX is not as protective as it may seem at first sight. As you can see from the last few minutes that I've presented, there are so many issues that are going on for these students, and it's like no one cares, or no one is speaking up, or no one is trying to make a difference. And so that's why I feel like it was very important for me to do my study over this, because I'm not gonna lie, when I first saw Title IX, I thought it was protective until I did research. And I feel like